Hello, everyone, and welcome to Her Vision, Her Voice, a show where we celebrate the bold and powerful voices of women, women of color, and women in the LGBTQ plus community who are redefining the music and film industries. I'm your host, Aline Kazarian, and in each episode, we'll dive into conversations with trailblazers who have turned obstacles into opportunities, using their vision to amplify their voices and inspire change. Today, I will be joined by Tenaya Medeiros in the second hour of the show. Tenaya, a Bay Area native, moved to Los Angeles 8 years ago to pursue a career in music after earning a marketing degree and working in fashion, tech, and advertising. Although she never thought she'd work in music, she landed a job at Spotify where she spent 7.5 years contributing to artist and label partnerships, artist marketing, and songwriter and publisher relations. Passionate about spotlighting behind-the-scenes creators, Tenaya led initiatives like Equal, Frequency, and Created by Women, which supports women identifying songwriters, producers, and artists. In June 2024, she joined Legacy, an independent music publishing company managing rights to iconic R&B and hip-hop songs, where she oversees publishing operations and songwriter partnerships. Beyond music, Tenaya enjoys horseback riding, equestrian vaulting, acting, and is certified in hypnotherapy and Reiki. All right, if you're just tuning in, this is Her Vision, Her Voice. I am your host, Aline Kazarian, and I am joined now by Tenaya Medeiros. How are you, Tenaya?
I'm good. How's it going?
Oh, I'm doing good. I know we were just talking a little bit off air, and I'm just super stoked to have you here. I'm really excited to get into your story. And to start, let's start with the very beginning. Let's start with your upbringing. I'm super curious to know, before you moved to LA 8 years ago, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What was your upbringing like in the Bay Area, and how would you say that your upbringing had an influence on maybe your perspective on creativity or certain career choices, or like what your, opportunities were going to be moving forward, and then ultimately moving to LA and how the story unfolded? So let's start with your upbringing.
Yeah, sure. Well, I am actually the oldest of 7.
Awesome. Come from a big family.
Yeah. And I was raised by my grandma. So growing up in the Bay, it is a very creative space. There's lots of different communities and cultures, but music isn't really at the helm of things, or at least the music industry. So my grandma would take me to a bunch of like art and wine festivals or
That's
like
awesome.
jazz festival. Like, we were around music, but I had never met anyone who actually worked in music or behind the scenes. All I saw was like the end result.
Sure.
Oh, that person on stage singing.
Yeah.
I can't sing. I was a flute flunk out.
Is it flautist? Is that what they call someone who plays a flute?
Oh, I didn't even get that good. In middle school, I was just like, tried to join the band and I had to drop out.
Okay.
So I am like not musically inclined whatsoever.
Okay.
But I really like being around creative people.
Yeah.
Like, that fills me up. So it just got to be like a point where I was getting really good jobs in San Francisco, like in the tech industry and even advertising. And I'm like, I could continue to do this, bounce around from one to the other, get paid more and more each time, kind of a endless loop. But it wasn't like gonna fulfill me because I still wanted to be around creative people. Not to say those people aren't, but
it's a different kind of creativity. I think music is so on the other side of the spectrum when it comes to the type of creativity that is involved. And tech is just very different. It's a different way of thinking and a different career as well, I imagine. I've never worked in it, so I don't know. But my idea of it is that it's very, very different.
Yeah, so it kind of just got to a point where I'm like, I'm really good at what I'm doing, but it's just not really challenging me anymore. So, and kind of at the same time, while I had those jobs, I was expanding my network. I started coming out to LA a lot more to hang out with my friends down here. And all my friends down here like grew up in LA. So I was getting like the true authentic LA experience and learning about like people who actually had jobs in LA and what they did. So it kind of just opened up a whole new world for me. And I'm like, wow, it's not a big mysterious thing to work in music. They have all the skills I am doing and have, like, on the business side of it.
Yeah.
So I kind of just want to go for it.
Yeah.
So I put in my notice at my job, got out of my lease, quit, and didn't have a job lined up, but I was just like, I'll figure it out.
Sure.
Like, I just got to go for it. But actually, within a few days of me moving, I had my interview with Spotify, and like, that was pre-COVID. So like,
right.
Normally all their interviews were in person, but they made that exception for me to do it on like a Google Hangout.
Yeah.
So I got the job without even coming to LA and meeting them.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I guess I am moving to LA with the job.
Yeah. Yeah, it just happened so out of nowhere.
Yeah,
How did
like
you
I
feel
hadn't even
in that
unpacked
moment?
my car on my first day of work. Like, all my clothes and everything were like in the back of my car, and I'm like pulling into the Spotify parking lot.
And was it one of those situations where you just saw something online and you applied to it, or did you have a friend that worked there, or like what was that situation like? Because that seems like it happened so quickly, which is incredible. But like, how did it happen?
Well, it was the combination of worlds. So my best friend from my small town back in the Bay Area went to UCSB, which I was also like, everyone thinks I went there just by how much I went down and hung out with them all the time. So one of her roommates became my good friend, and she was the first artist and label services person at Spotify.
Okay.
So way back in the day.
Yeah.
And her boss needed an assistant. So that's how I started at Spotify, as an assistant, but not just to one person, to 3 executives.
Of course.
And I was the first person that they tried that model on, because everyone else just was an assistant to one person, but they're like, no, you can do 3. And it was rough.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. I feel like you probably needed assistance to help you with assisting 3 executives in that moment. So what do you think when you landed that initial position, what do you think that, time of being an assistant to not 1, but 3 people helped you understand, or helped you develop within you, that you were then able to take in as you were able to build and start to actually get into the kind of work that you wanted to do there?
Yeah. Well, the positive part of it was they were each heads of a different team in the music org. Okay. So I got and this was my first job in music, so it was like a crash course in basically every path you could go down in music. One of the bosses was like head of just artist marketing, so like all the billboards you see, or any sort of like ad campaign, essentially. Another boss was like label services, so more like the relationship building with the labels and the management companies. And then the other was like more larger, like the Grammys, or like big splashy moments. And then we'll get into like how I started to go more down the songwriting publishing path. But when I first started at Spotify in 2016, there wasn't even a department for songwriters or producers. Right. That came after.
Because those were the really early days. I don't think people realize how young Spotify still is in relation to just the music industry as a whole, right? So yeah, those are very early days for Spotify.
So then they hired someone to come in and lead songwriting, and that's when things started to like shift around, and they're like, well, maybe that person needs Tenaya's help. Yeah. and I'll get my own assistant. So it kind of started to like trickle down where they all finally got their own assistants.
Well, thank goodness for that.
Yeah, because I spent my first couple of years in LA like pulling over to the side of the road, like crying. Sure. Essentially having to juggle all of this Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, considering that you, again, didn't have that sort of like immediate support either. You didn't have your own assistant. You didn't have anybody that was helping you. And you had to deal with, I'm sure, so many different types of personalities as well, which I think is something people don't oftentimes think about, which is there are so many different types of people in an organization, and you have to be able to, you know, be malleable and work with every kind of person. Otherwise, you're going to be screwed, you know? So the fact that you were able to finally get to a point where they also realized that they could get their own assistants and you could go into that specific songwriter path, I think is amazing. So what did that then start to transition into, and what did you actually start doing at that point once you got into working with the songwriter, the head of the songwriter department?
Well, kind of when all this was happening, not to toot my own horn, but I'm going to, I was kind of like a catalyst of change at Spotify, because they were hiring these executives that came from other places that still operated on the mentality where like an assistant is, you just demand them to do anything and everything for you, whether it's professional or personal. Yeah. And those lines were getting blended. And that was kind of like going above Spotify's head, like the actual like HR departments and people like that. And I was like, I came to them and I was like, I honestly think I'm doing things that are not part of my job description.
Right.
And this is like a conversation that needs to be had internally, because we're already like strapped for resources and I'm doing things I don't think I should be doing. So I advocated for myself. I'm like, this is what you hired me to do. This is everything I am doing. Like, this does not match up. I am not an assistant.
Yeah.
I was, and they're like, no, you're right. So they created like different levels that you could like now work your way up.
Okay.
So I was like the first assistant to then be coordinator. And then I did the same thing with a coordinator. Like, this is still not like, I've done this and it's not adding up. Now I need to be an associate manager. And they're like, well, that doesn't exist on the music team. I'm like, well, why not?
Right.
Like,
create it.
Yeah, create it.
So did they?
Yes.
Okay, good.
So I was kind of, and then I'd always be the first person to become that. And then all the other assistants would, like, it made paths for them.
Yeah.
So it was just, so that happened for me quickly on the songwriting side.
Okay. So then my understanding from just having read a little bit about you and also about your time at Spotify, which was over 7 years, and that's such a significant amount of time in a person's early part of their career, right? Because, you know, you're so young and you're literally soaking up everything that you can, and you're being exposed to so many different aspects of, you know, the different departments at Spotify, and that's just one company. So the fact that you then were able to create these groundbreaking initiatives like Equal and, you know, Frequency, like those are, I'm sure, such rewarding experiences to have. So what ultimately led to you being able to be part of the team that, you know, created those initiatives? Yeah.
Well, Equal was probably the most long-standing initiative, but so I didn't create that, but there started to be a conversation around why songwriters and producers weren't a part of initiatives. Because to be totally honest, like, you have to think of Spotify, like, it is a tech company.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's a tech company that does music. And it's very siloed.
Yeah.
Like, we're the music team, but it was still very much like the artist side and the songwriter producer side. And the songwriter producer side was constantly like fighting for us to be even included as employees. So factor that in with like a community, the songwriting community, who feels that way themselves.
Right.
It took a lot of like squeaky wheel gets the oil, a lot of advocacy to even be in the discussion and get the same resources that was happening across the music team.
Right.
So like when big campaigns were happening, for instance, like every March for Equal, it's Women's History Month. So that's always going to be like a campaign moment. So we just started like raising our hands and being like, well, how can we like throw some songwriters in the mix? Like, we honestly would have taken scraps at that point just to be like included.
Sure.
But more conversations started to like bubble up, and people were actually like into it. They just didn't think of it themselves.
Sure.
So that's why like we really had to advocate for it.
Yeah.
So didn't create Equal, but created a sub-brand within Equal called Created by Women, which was honestly an experiment with me and a coworker, Michelle Fantis. We're just like, can you name any songs that are 100% written, produced, and recorded by women? And we're like, not off the top of our head, but let's do some
research. Yeah.
Some research. So we sat with it for a couple days and made a Spotify playlist, just a private one for us. And we're like, wow, there actually is like at least 50.
Yeah.
So we're like, because that's the perfect number for a Spotify playlist. So we're like, we can make a playlist, put this 50 songs, and we'll just have it, you know, like kind of in the background. We'll add to it when we want to.
Yeah.
But the more that we sat with it and like still kept looking, it became like a huge like discovery process.
Right.
We're like, no, this could be a monthly updated playlist. We'll do 40 songs each month, a new rotation of new songs and previously released songs, just as long as it fits the parameters of 100% created by women.
Yeah.
So it kind of popped off.
That's
and then,
so incredible.
Yeah, we would have labels and management companies and publishers like constantly reaching out to us, asking how they could get on the playlist. And that sparked the conversation of like, well, do you have any songs in your catalog or roster that fits this bill? And that they'll be like, well, no.
That's so wild.
Yeah, so wild. So it'd be like women artist, women songwriter, but then a male producer. And we're like, okay, that's great. But like one easy fix or would, you know, would make it qualifiable. So just something to think about.
Right.
And they actually did take that note and started reaching out to like female producers or
who are out there.
Yeah.
By the way, it's not like they don't exist, you know, it's just they're unfortunately not getting the same level of opportunities that their male counterparts are getting on any given opportunity. So it's just like, just put in the effort. It's not hard. Just put in a little bit of effort and you can make it happen.
Yeah.
That's the part of it that kind of blows my mind. And I'm sure you probably also felt the same way, or maybe you felt similarly to that, right? Like,
yeah. And it's just like, and then we got to a point where it was like Taylor Swift's team was hitting us up, Mariah Carey, Alicia Keys, like huge names of incredible women, you know, artists, producers, songwriters, whatever you want to label them. They're all of the above, but they were really eager to be recognized as songwriters or producers. So their teams were reaching out to us to do like our little, I mean, what we thought was little at the time, our little Created by Women initiative.
Yeah.
So that was really great to see.
Sure. What do you think has driven you? Like, do you think there was a moment in your past before you went to Spotify, before you had any sort of exposure to what the possibilities were there? Like, was there ever a moment for you where you were like, songwriters or people who were behind the scenes, like, those are the kinds of people that I want to amplify and that I want to help? Like, what ultimately led you to want to be that individual who is still, you know, championing those kinds of creatives who oftentimes are not really recognized or paid fairly or really paid at all? Do you know what I mean? So just really curious to know.
Yeah, I think they always spoke to me because I just relate in the sense of like, they're not underdogs at all, but the way that they have to like fight for themselves and advocate for what they deserve is kind of in line with like an underdog in the situation. So I feel like I'm just like a really fair and just person, and I just really want to like go hard for people who deserve more recognition or fairness. Like actually, if I didn't study marketing, I wanted to be like a social worker.
Awesome.
So yeah. I think it comes from something I have inside of me, like just compassion and empathy and fairness and just.
Yeah. And I imagine that once Created by Women really took off, that there was, at least hopefully, I want to think, more of your colleagues were and higher ups were open to you and the rest of your team being able to do more things in that sort of space. Did that happen?
Yeah, totally. They were begging us to.
Oh, that's awesome.
And just to put things in perspective, like my team, the Songwriter and Publishing Relations team, globally, there was 10 of us. Mm-hmm. And we were supposed to represent everything. Single publisher, producer, songwriter, genre, market, 10 people. And then in comparison, the artist side is 300 or 400 globally, and then they get to be broken down by genre and market and label. So we were like very strained.
Yeah. Small and mighty
and
team.
And then Created by Women was only me and my colleague Michelle.
Wow.
And we were doing everything.
So you also were, correct me if I'm wrong, when it came to adding music every single month, were you also essentially like an editor?
Yeah, we were the only
crazy
team that did it ourselves.
Wow. So did it then build so that there were dedicated editors working on those playlists, or was it just still you and your coworker?
We still did it. We could flag songs up to be like considered for other playlists, but we were the dedicated Created by Women.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So crazy. But I'm sure also very, in hindsight, I imagine that being part of something like that was really fulfilling.
Oh yeah, it was the best.
And especially then to have people like Alicia Keys' team and Taylor Swift's team and Mariah Carey's team reaching out to you, wanting to be part of something that you and your coworker created, must have been so incredible.
Yeah, it was amazing. They ended up getting billboards in Times Square,
right?
Like Created by Women billboards. Like you don't see that ever, and I think that was full circle moment. They were flying out themselves to like take pictures in front of their billboards.
So cool.
So that was really cool. And it started to get to a point where me and Michelle were flying out to different cities and doing just like Created by Women mixers.
Yeah.
That were always supposed to be just like super casual. They weren't supposed to be like frills or fancy. It was supposed to be like inviting and inclusive to like a beginning or aspiring songwriter to a more established one, just like a melting pot.
Yeah.
So we did one in Toronto, a couple in LA, Nashville. So to like actually be in person and connect was just the best. And here, like, especially in LA, a couple of the women came up to me and they're like, we normally don't go out to bars or drink with other female counterparts because we're scared.
Yeah.
Like we're scared of our drinks getting roofied or whatever. So to have this space is amazing.
Yeah,
and thank you.
I'm sure it actually felt like a safe space for them to be in and to be part of. And it, again, is so wild to me that it takes so long to get to that sort of place where you can provide those opportunities and those spaces for people to finally feel what they've been wanting to feel for their whole careers and even their whole lives. you know?
Yeah.
So that's really awesome that you were able to do those in-person events and actually meet those people and make those things come to life in a very different way. You know, it was a more elevated way, I feel like. So once all of that happened, what happened afterwards? Like, what were things looking like after Created by Women? And what was the rest of those, you know, last few years of you being at Spotify? What was that looking like?
Things were changing.
Yeah.
They were changing.
Yeah.
I think it got to a place where, I mean, Spotify wanted to grow, and they are growing at a super rapid pace. So they kind of wanted things to be more templatized. Like, even going back to the Created by Women mixers, they're like, okay, create a template that we could ship off to our other markets so you don't have to be involved anymore. They can just do it.
Sure.
Which is great, but like, if you have that feeling kind of through everything you're doing, it starts to feel icky.
Yeah. And it also kind of goes to what we were talking about off air too, and we were touching on AI and what that can look like moving forward, and if it really will take over everything or if it won't. And we both kind of agree that it won't take over everything. But there certainly is this sort of way of thinking, especially I think in the tech world, where in their minds, I imagine they think this will be, you know, more of a cost saver. This will also just be so much easier, which I feel like in tech, everything is just, they want to make everything easier and more accessible, and well, maybe not more accessible necessarily in the broader sense of the word, but just in terms of usage, make it more easy for people. But that misses out on such a big component of, you know, a playlist like Created by Women, which is you and your coworker poured your heart into this, and you created an initiative and these campaigns that were shown in the middle of Times Square, and had grown over time and became bigger and bigger, and it couldn't have happened without you and your coworker making this come to life. So the fact that things unfortunately take that turn sometimes is just, it's really unfortunate.
Yeah. So yeah, things were starting to lose a bit of the human touch. And I think that was felt throughout for everyone. And yeah, to be honest, I don't even think I told you, but I was like part of the mass layoff, probably the fourth one down the line, because they just kept doing them. Yeah. So it'd be like half of our team would be affected. We would take on all the work. Then a couple months later, like, it was just a trickle down effect. So I think by the fourth round or whatever, I was finally affected. It was 2,000 of us. So no small number.
Yeah.
But I kind of took it as a blessing in disguise, because like I said, I was starting to feel stagnant and feel like my creativity and authenticity that I was bringing to campaigns and initiatives was just being...
Yeah, it seemed like it was being taken and kind of set aside, you know, because they internally were wanting to go in a direction that didn't necessarily require, you know, people like you contributing to things that honestly probably could have made things even bigger for them, you know?
Yeah.
And again, like I'm also such a big proponent of, like, people are the ones that create change. Not AI, not anything that's templatized or whatever. It's just people are at the heart and soul of everything. So if you take away that component, then everything's just going to feel the same, and it's going to feel boring. And it's, again, another thing we were talking about off air was my thoughts on the Super Bowl commercials that had come out, and how agencies are just sort of like, everything just feels the same. Everything feels boring. Nothing is really like shaking things up anymore. And that's really the unfortunate side of technology too, is like, it can have such wonderful advances and actually help people in so many ways. But then there comes this point where it's like everything just shifts and it goes into a completely different direction that's not really beneficial to anybody working at any of these companies. Yeah. So what I'm curious to know, considering that you were part of, one of these mass layoffs, was there a moment where even before that happened, you said that you were already starting to feel like you were stagnant and you couldn't really grow anymore. Was there a part of you that kind of felt like that layoff was coming? And were you mentally preparing for it, or did it still come as a shock to you?
It still came as a shock to me because of where I felt. Yeah, it came as a shock, to be honest. It was actually in the middle of a writing camp that I was planning and facilitating. So even after I got the news that I was laid off, I had to stay up all night and notify everyone not to come to the writing camp tomorrow because I was no longer with the company.
Right.
So it was definitely abrupt.
Yeah. And how were you feeling in that moment? Did you take some time for yourself to just grieve that loss? Because it is still a loss, know. Jobs are jobs, sure, but it's still, that's a significant portion of your life that you had
you
contributed
to be on your own terms,
right?
Or
and
think that it will be.
Exactly, and you served your time to this massive tech company. So I wonder what that process was like for you mentally, emotionally after such a big layoff.
Yeah, so I definitely took time to just not even think about working. Because you're right, I wanted to grieve what was, but also take that time to really think about why I was having those feelings to begin with, why I was feeling stagnant and not fulfilled anymore, or just creatively stifled. So I sat with that for a while. I think the hardest part at first was just how relationships change, and you kind of begin to realize that maybe a lot of them were surface level coworkers that were friends stop reaching out. I think those were the hardest feelings to sit with.
Yeah.
And still, that changes. I'm not really in the scene like I used to be, or I don't really get invited to the same stuff, but I feel way better about it.
Good.
Because I'm doing things that are more aligned with me.
Yeah. So what was the time between the layoff from Spotify into your current job now at Legacy, and what led to that role?
Yeah, well, that's also a full circle moment too, because at Legacy, I now work with my old boss.
Oh, interesting. That's so crazy.
So he left Spotify, I think, a year before I did.
Wow.
And got together with a couple of his close, business partners, and they invested in acquiring the catalog. So it's just four partners and me. Yeah. And two of them I have worked with before. Mm-hmm. So it's new, but it's familiar.
Yeah. Would you say it's familiar in the sense of, obviously it's your old boss from Spotify, but also maybe in the sense of it being yet again another small and mighty team that's working on a lot of big projects?
No, yeah, I guess that probably is a theme for me. I like to feel a little scrappy and bootlegged. or bootstraps or whatever it's called.
Well, I do think that when you're in that sort of position that you do have more of, I could be totally wrong and please correct me if I am, but I think you do have a little bit more maybe authority to try something new and totally. to go to your boss and be like, hey, what if we tried something like this?
Yeah. So and me and my boss had a conversation kind of about that before I started. He's like, look, this is going to be nothing like Spotify. It's going to be totally autonomous. I'm going to look to you to pitch us the ideas of what we should be doing and how things should be working. There's no template already in place. You're creating it. I know you're good at this stuff. Just go for it. And kind of get out of all the parameters and politics and everything we're used to working with within the walls of Spotify.
And was there a moment for you where you felt like not only excitement, but maybe also a little bit of fear? Like, did you feel any sense of like, I don't know if I can do this ever? Or were you going into it as confident as could be because of all of the experiences you had at Spotify?
No, there definitely fear, because the publishing world is so confusing and it changes all the time. And my previous experience of music publishing was only in what related to Spotify, which is like a whole nother world. Mm-hmm. Like I knew how publishing worked within the context of Spotify.
Yeah.
But that's not how it works for everything. So I was feeling more hesitant about like how much I really knew about publishing. But once Spotify was taken out of the equation, I realized, no, I do actually know a lot and I can hold my own.
Yeah.
And I do know what I'm talking about. I was just kind of like doubting it before.
Yeah, it's funny how that happens, where you do have all of the, well, I don't want to say you do have all of the knowledge, because, you know, I think you do still end up learning so much as you continue to grow. And when I say you, I don't mean you directly, but just the broader sense of the word. But there is that weird thing that happens where you spend so many years doing a thing, and then you still doubt yourself when another opportunity comes your way and you're given what seems like more of a leadership role, because you are the person that your boss is coming to for ideas and to really lead them into the direction that would ultimately be best for them as a company, right?
Yeah.
So it feels like you're actually part of something for real.
Totally.
In a lot of ways, and in shaping what this company is going to be able to do, right?
Right.
So you did mention that publishing can be very confusing. Like that whole world can be very confusing and it changes all the time. What are some of those things that make it so confusing? And what are some things that maybe have changed within the last even few years that, you know, certain people just don't really know about if they're not part of that world?
Yeah. Well, I would say, at least on the recording, the master side, there's a lot more room for negotiation. On the publishing side, a lot of it is just regulated by law. And as you can imagine, laws take forever to change. And going back to what I said before, it just takes people, squeaky wheels, like raising your hand, like advocating and fighting for change. And that takes a lot of people and a lot of time. So with technology always changing, the law just isn't at the same pace as the technology. So songwriters and publishing and all that is always years behind everything else.
And do you think that's one of the main reasons why maybe there are frustrations for songwriters, in the sense of like things are not staying up to pace with how the laws in this country are, you know, changing?
Yeah, 100%. And also there's it was honestly surprising to realize how many songwriters and producers actually don't know what their contract was, or their deal. And I don't know all how they got to be in those positions. I can imagine, but like seeing the difference between the top tier producers and even the ones who make money, but like more, you know, mid-level. The top tier ones know every word.
Wow.
And meaning everything about their contracts. They know it through and through, what it all means. And then everything below that, like, it seems that they have no idea.
Do you think it's an issue of access? Like the fact that these top tier producers and songwriters know everything word for word, do you think that's because they have the support from people around them so that they're able to understand what it is, you know, that's written in those contracts, like lawyers or...
Yeah, because you start to get more clout, and the things that I told you were normally non-negotiable become negotiable.
Right. Right. And then the ones that are not as, you know, top tier probably don't even have, that kind of support to be able to understand what those things are for them and how things look for them, which is so messed up on so many levels. And also, I'm still curious to know what percentage of songwriters are actually able to make a livable sort of wage. Like, what would you say that percentage is?
I forgot, honestly. It used to be just like a number that was on the top of my mind. Because that was Spotify's like goal, to have more of like a middle class group of artists that could survive on their work.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Is that something, do you feel that that's something that you're also advocating for in this new role at Legacy, is helping songwriters get to a place where they can actually make a living off of just making music?
Well, at Legacy, at this point, and things might change, but at Legacy, everything is catalog.
Okay.
So everything that we acquired is from the early 2000s.
Okay.
And some of the producers or writers have since passed, so I'm dealing with like their estates. But we are bringing new life because we're constantly clearing for commercials or film and TV or samples and new songs. So, which we get publishing on the new songs. So that is Legacy, but we do want to expand.
Yeah.
So all the contracts that are and agreements that I'm working with, going back to a little bit archaic, they were signed in the early 2000s.
Okay.
So I am reading through all of these.
Yeah.
And it's crazy.
Does half of it even make sense, or do you feel like you have to go back to it over and over again to even understand?
Oh yeah, I've read them hundreds of times.
Yeah, that must be a real challenge to have to go through these older documents and not only understand them, but then know what to do with that information moving forward.
Yeah, and when you acquire a catalog, you are inheriting that business relationship.
Yeah,
like we weren't involved.
Sure.
In any of that, but now I need to build a relationship with the songwriters and let them know, like, whatever happened in the past, like, I'm your new.
Yeah.
Like, I am looking over you, and it's not going to be that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So would you say that being in Legacy has been what's the word I'm looking for? Do you feel like you have more of an opportunity to do the things that you want to do moving forward?
Yeah, 100%. And we're like in the early days. I don't know if I answered the question, but I started working with them in June.
Okay.
So it hasn't even been a year.
Right.
And I was the first person they acquired the catalog, dealt with all the legal stuff and finance stuff, but they hadn't really started working the catalog.
Got it.
So I'm the first person who's really had full eyes on everything.
Yeah.
Organizing the splits and the shares and all of that. So we kind of started from ground zero when I started in June.
Yeah.
And I'm still in my phases of like housekeeping, like getting the inventory of what we have. And I'm excited for the next phase, which me and my boss, or my old boss from Spotify, who's my current boss, will start to bring in, the things we love doing at Spotify. Like me and him could throw a killer writing camp. So kind of, taking things from our toolbox at Spotify and bringing them into like the catalog space.
And would those writing camps be national, international, both? Like how do you envision even something like a writing camp looking like?
I think they'd be both. One of my bosses actually lives in South Africa.
Oh, awesome.
So we have and the other two live in Atlanta. So we're very I'm the only one in LA.
Okay. Yeah.
My calls are at 7 a.m.
Yeah. So there's definitely a lot of opportunity to expand and to do things that will continue to build this company out and build out what it is that you guys are doing over there. And I'm sure that's super exciting.
Yeah.
What would you say is within these last, 8, almost 9 years that you've been working, what would you say is one of the key elements that has led you to feel, what success actually looks like for you?
When I was thinking about it, it was not so much like a project or a role or anything like that. It's feeling like people know my value and what I bring to the table, and they actually enjoy working and collaborating with me, because I've witnessed on many occasions, like being in the early stages of a project or a campaign or something, where you're just throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks, like throwing out artists and people that could possibly be a part of certain campaigns. And really what is said behind closed doors always comes down to like, well, they're amazing. We like their music. We like what they're doing. But do we really want to work with someone on their team?
Yeah.
And when you really think about that, how you could be amazing and like bring so much to the table, but someone you're surrounding yourself with is bringing you down. Like, I never want anyone to say anything like that about me. So I think success is just people speak highly about you to your face and behind your back.
Yeah. Ultimately to be kind to people.
Yeah.
I think, which seems so simple, but can oftentimes get so complicated, and I remember I was also told very early on, even before I started my career, where people were like, you could be insanely talented and really good at what you do, but if you're an asshole, nobody will want to work with you. So, or they will, but it will be almost like torture for them, because they're working with you because you're going to give them a fat check or something. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Otherwise, to your point, it's like, I don't think those people are going to say very nice things about that specific kind of individual behind their backs, So I think that's a really great point of view and perspective on what success looks like for you.
Yeah. And the tables always turn. Like,
right.
If my boss didn't like working with me at Spotify, he wouldn't have thought of me for this new role. And then if you work at Spotify, but then one day want to work at like, everyone is always switching around. So you have to leave a good impression on everyone you meet.
Yeah. And I think that's really the key component of networking, right? Like, people throw around that word networking, and sometimes it feels really icky when people are like, you need to go out and network and but I think the key to it is exactly what you're saying is, you meet certain people, and if you leave a good impression, those people are going to remember you. And it might not be that, you get this amazing opportunity in a year or a few years or whatever, but ultimately, you never know. It might happen. You might be that person that other person will remember and will want to reach out to. So I do also agree with you in that sense of like, it's just so important to have those kinds of relationships with people, good, strong relationships that actually feel genuine, even though that feels weird to say, like saying that it should be genuine, because it just naturally will be, but yeah, I do think that that's such a huge part of growing in your career and just being remembered ultimately well, at the end of the day.
Yep. So
outside of music, you also have other hobbies.
Yeah.
You do horseback riding. You're also certified in hypnotherapy and Reiki. Like, how did that all come about? Were you like always a horse girl? Was that your thing, or?
Yeah, I guess it was. I've never had a horse.
Okay.
But somehow I found myself into horse girl activities. So actually, And another hobby is equestrian vaulting, which is gymnastics on a moving horse.
That's just so crazy.
So somehow I found myself doing that as a child. Like, I don't know how I got into that. And I was pretty good. Competed and got first place a bunch of times. And then I just ended up stopping because the horse passed away. Oh. So then I kind of like forgot about it. But one day in LA, a couple months ago, I was like, I wonder if there's any like horse vaulting places here in LA.
Sure.
I should look. So I did. So now I'm back doing horse vaulting.
That's so cool.
And my first competition is next month.
Wow. That's awesome.
And it will be in the Olympics for the first time ever. Not in LA, but I think it's the 2032 Olympics in Australia.
Wow.
I'll be too old by then, but I'll be supporting.
Do you think that you would have competed?
If I kept doing it as a kid, I think I could have.
That's so interesting that that horse passed away and then you were just like, I don't know.
Well, I should have pushed myself to keep doing it, but the bond and the trust that you build doing that on an animal, I didn't think could be like replicated. But I should have.
Well, I don't know if it's a should have thing. I think it's more of, because I oftentimes think about this too. I oftentimes think if I wasn't working in music, what would be that other thing that I would do? One of the things that comes to mind for me is being a perfumer, because I love perfume so much and I think it's so fascinating. But then I'm like, how do you become a perfumer? Like, do you have to be good at chemistry? What do you know? And then other times I think one of the other things I would have loved to pursue, and it's something I played in high school, which is tennis. And sometimes I think, I'm like, what would have happened to my life if I decided to like really go down the path of being a professional tennis player? And I wonder if you have thoughts like that too, even now, like just thinking about being, an equestrian vaulter or just working in that sort of world. Would that be something that you would have ultimately done if you had continued on as a kid? Or do you think you still would have found something else to do in your life?
I think I've presented with the opportunity to be a full-time horse girl, I would take it to this day. I would still turn in my resignation and be a full-time horse girl if I could.
Yeah, if anybody is listening who can provide that opportunity, that would be incredible. Okay, so then talk about the hypnotherapy certification and Reiki. Like, how is that something? Have you always been interested in that world and just having more of an interest in? I guess you can categorize it as spiritual in a sense, but...
Yeah, I've always been spiritual. Like, my grandma was a full-on, she lived in the Santa Cruz Mountains in a hippie commune back in the day.
That's great.
So I've always been, like, spiritual and I guess kind of woo-woo, but Bay Area spiritual is very different from LA spiritual.
Sure.
Like, I didn't know about Reiki or even hypnotherapy before I lived in LA.
Yeah.
So it does seem like a very LA thing. But actually, I got into Reiki. 2 of my coworkers at Spotify for my birthday one year were like, you seem really stressed out. So they gifted me a Reiki massage.
Wow.
And I had never done it. And I went and it was like amazing. Like she said, it's kind of funny. She said my throat chakra was blocked.
Okay.
So I wasn't like speaking up for myself or able to like voice my opinions. And that was happening at work. And that's kind of like why I was feeling stressed and frustrated. And she cleared it. And then I went back to work and it honestly really worked. Huh. Then I couldn't keep my mouth shut. I was like arguing my point with like coworkers and like, I'm like, oh, we need to close it.
Wow.
Close my throat chakra.
I think I have only one friend that I know of who has done Reiki in the past. But I still have no clue what actually happens. Like, I know what acupuncture is, but like, what what happens? Does someone just like look at you and kind of like put their hands over you, but doesn't actually touch you, and just like feel your energy? And then, kind of like what this lady said, which is like your throat chakra is blocked. Like, is that all that happens? Or like what actually happens?
Yeah. So, I mean, energy is constantly like flowing through our bodies. That's why they say, like, if you go outside and step on grass, like the energy of the earth is actually like transmuting through you. So we all operate on a certain frequency, and our hands are like trained to, if you hover over certain parts of the body, we can feel the frequency. And if something is, stagnant, it feels very like stuck and heavy on our hands, maybe even cold. If something's really activated, we can kind of start to feel like our palms pulsating, and we can start to like sweat, and like you just start to like feel all the little subtle things in different parts of the body.
That's so interesting.
And then people are just analyzing in the end and telling you, like, based off what they felt, what they think. So that's why there could be totally BS Reiki practitioners who are just telling you that you're like, I don't know. So it still totally depends on the person interpreting what they feel your energy is.
I might be reaching out to you because I've never done a Reiki session before, and it seemed so fascinating to me. But then I just always used to think, like, what actually happens during those sessions?
So then I went to the same lady a couple times. And then realized she did like a training program. So I did it with her and got certified. So,
that's so cool.
Now I can do it on myself.
Interesting.
Which I really like doing.
So is that a practice that you have where maybe once a month, or does it happen more frequently where you're checking your own energy and seeing like what's kind of off, what needs a little bit more attention? Like, how often are you doing that?
Well, I feel like I should do it every day, similar to like meditating, but I don't.
Okay.
The time that I like really try to do it, it kind of sounds weird, but I do it in the steam room at the gym. Okay.
I mean, that's a good place to do it. I feel like the steam already is kind of helping release a lot of energy anyway, and then you could just do it.
But I probably look crazy, like just holding my hand above my head. But yeah.
Well, Tenaya, we do have to start wrapping up, and I want to ask you this final question, which is essentially what sort of legacy you want to leave behind, not just in your work, but in your life. You may have also touched on it just in terms of like, when you're thinking about what success looks like for you. But is the legacy that you leave behind different than what you think about as far as like being successful for yourself?
I think the legacy I want to leave behind kind of ties up everything I said. I want to inspire and empower people to do things differently. If they have a curiosity that they feel creeping in them, whether it be like a new hobby that some think are weird or a new career path, to just explore that and see where it leads you, and just show up authentically as yourself, because that's always going to get you farther than anything else. And yeah, just going back to being like a good, kind, honest person, really.
Simple as that. Well, thank you, Tenaya, so much for being part of the show. This was a really fun conversation, and I really enjoyed having you on the show. So thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, that does it for this month's episode of Her Vision, Her Voice. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I will be back next month on March 15th. You can find the entire set list from the first hour of the show on the Dublab website when the archived episode is out early next week. If you'd like to know more about my guest, Tenaya Medeiros, you can follow her on Instagram at Tenaya. All right, you guys, stay tuned. We have Beats of All Nations coming up next. All right, you guys, have a great weekend.